And next, they sent me a guy named Colonel Scott Matthews, who, when he's not down here helping me fix a base, he's running the military construction program for the entire United States Air Force. So the Air Force did its part. The Air Force sent me 2 true champions from our ranks. So it's my pleasure to leave you in the very capable hands of my friend, Colonel Scott Matthews.
Well, welcome everybody. It's so good to see so many familiar faces, and hopefully I can live up to that warm welcome and hype by Colonel Laidlaw. But an interesting fact, and I know there's a member in this audience that knows and saw it placed in the video, somehow it got there, but you know what? Besides being 2 engineers, what Colonel Pat Miller and I both have in common, we were educated at the great Pennsylvania State University. Go Lions. So, as we look out, I know as I've seen many of you at SAME events before and around the country as we work MilCon and other repair and construction projects, it's important to understand where we are. And I will tell you, everybody, this slide is probably as current as of last night. This is a continually moving target on how we're going to try to recover Tyndall. And every day when we think we've got a plan, Mother Nature, the discovery within the walls of some of our facilities, we find that that plan is going to change. And when I'll tell you, I remember very early on when we heard about the storm hitting Tyndall, we had some people, and it was probably a day after the storm hit or 2 days after the storm hit, there was a video from a helicopter that was shown and made its way around. We had engineering professionals, Civil Engineer Center, were pulling up the base maps. We pulled up the base plans to start doing some analysis on what we could. They were going in and geo-referencing the damage they saw off those videos, taking screenshots, and starting to tag buildings so we had an idea to build situational awareness of what's going to happen. But I will tell each and every one of you, as much as we've tried to show you what the base is like today with that video, you cannot understand what it's like until you walk the ground. The video flyovers from drones and both the helicopters, you look at a building and it looks perfectly intact. We said we've got a good building there, got an initial tag of green, that it was good to go. You walk inside, and some of the folks are here today from the Civil Engineer Center, down the 9700 area, we had 8 to 12 foot storm surge. There's nothing left in the bottom floor of that building, but the roof is completely intact. The second floor, the offices look like you left it that day and went home. Nothing is touched. The bottom floor is completely gone. So as we get on the ground and work those assessments hand in hand with the Corps of Engineers and many of the AE firms in this room, we are finding that what we thought was a condition of a building is not, and that's why this master planning and bringing you all together to help us nug through this problem is going to be critical. So I'll just go through some of the timelines as it is today. I'll show you some photos. Debris removal started very early. You couldn't do anything. My understanding, I was not here, but talking to the folks that wrote it out, and then Task Force Phoenix came in along with, we had Task Force Hammer from the Corps of Engineers, we had Seabees, we had Army engineers, we had Red Horse, we had a whole team here to try to get rid of the debris. It is still going to be ongoing. There's a lot that's been done, there's a lot more to go. The main base is cleared, but you can see as you drive down to Mexico Beach and others, there's still a lot of trees down. Assessing the damage, there's been multiple levels of assessing the damage. There was the initial, we did it, I call it kind of triage assessment. Then we came in, we had a lot of structural questions, so we brought in structural expertise. And then we continue, we had some more detailed assessments, but as we look at those buildings and they sit, and I'll get to as we tried to preserve what was there, no one expected, as I tell others, we are up 9 inches of rain for this time of the year in the last 2 months. We get a building dried in, and one night, about a week and a half ago, we tried to get there. The winds were so strong, I thought we were back in kind of a hurricane low level again. The wind damage ripped the temporary roofs back off the building. 10 days ago, we had a tornado touch down on the installation and ripped off a brand new roof we had just gotten put on. I had to relocate people, knocked out 23 windows. When I was downtown having dinner with some of my teammates that are here, when Colonel Laidlaw called me, I thought it was kind of a joke, and he wasn't, and we dropped what we were doing, and we may have broken a couple traffic laws. We got back to base as quick as we could. But I will tell you, the partners that we already have on the ground helping us were there, right there with us. We made phone calls. One gentleman was home with his kids in Wisconsin on a day of leave he hadn't had, and in 2.5 months, but the phone network started coming and industry was there to help us. So I really do appreciate that. So how do you, all those missions that you heard Colonel Laidlaw talk about, how are we getting there so quickly? We had some great response. I will tell you, I see General Williams down here talking what the first Air Force people did early days after the storm. He and I have been up on some high roofs, 2-story roofs in the AOC to take a look at the damage ourselves. But it's getting out there and getting some temp facilities in place. The Corps of Engineers through the Mobile District has been partners hand in hand. We've got more modular facilities showing up on the base. The first round is about 62 units. We've got another round coming in. We got rounds 2, 3, and 4, as well as we're looking at some unaccompanied housing, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. You can see, we think for the next 2 years, we're going to do permanent repairs on some facilities. There's a lot of uncertainty still as we master plan about how many millions of square feet, but give or take, we got about 4.2 million square feet on the base. 1 million of it's under permanent repair, and I'll talk about that today and what that means. But that's not done because there's still some work to do there. But we think we'll do that, and a lot of that's going to happen through the O&M realm, and I'll talk about what I think those numbers are today. And then as we roll out, and you'll hear Amy Vanderveer talk about what the master plan is going to be, that envision, we think that effort is already started, but that's probably next year or two, and it's getting some of those designs in place. Now, it's pretty easy. One of the nice things I will say about the Air Force Installation Mission Support Center and the Air Force Civil Engineer Center is with our global perspective and our ability, we call it the enterprise, we already have the expertise, and we're building F-35. We've been building them now for probably 5-6 years around the Air Force. We got bed downs ongoing up at RAF Lakenheath. We got construction going on in the winter up in Alaska. But we cannot use the same facilities we built up there, I believe, down here. We're going to have to take a different look at it, and we're going to take some different approaches and not just take the design off the shelf. So I look forward to some of your ideas and what some of the things that we're thinking about to help round that out. Additional modulars, as I mentioned, those trying to get those in place because today we relocated. We're working out of what used to be the Erie NCO Academy. They've relocated for a short period of time, but they want to start class again in about 18 months. So that means we got to get that building repaired. The roof is leaking. Every time it storms, we get a different place. We patch it, and it comes up someplace else. But we're moving into our new digs probably the next month or so. But firefighters, the bunk, we get to the fire department. Their building took a lot of damage, and they had no bunks, so their first bunk rooms were turned over to them last week. So they're able to have a good place in a modular facility for probably the next 3 to 5 years until we get the new facilities built. Demolition, you saw some of those video footage, and I'll show you some pictures here. Some of them were already taken down. I would say the first building's already been demolished, and we had to pick it up to have a WEG mission started. The first building is going to come down. The next vertical building that's damaged will come down on Monday. The contractors are on site this week. We look forward to taking the wrecking ball, if you will, to that first facility on Monday or Tuesday. And as we get into the long-term design, that's going to be really the rebuild effort for the F-35, potentially MQ-9, and then the many different concepts that we have out there. For example, you saw the dormitory complex. It looks okay visually, even on the video footage. You get down inside, those rooms are completely molded out. We had the heating and ventilation system was up on the roof. Those pipes are scattered. Once you lost the building envelope, and many of you know this, once the water got inside and we could not condition the air anymore, it was a losing battle. And we picked which ones we thought we could get after and save. And even now, coming back and looking at some of them, we were at some tear out, and I'll show you some photos. We thought we could save it, and it's a gut and plow under. And so we fight that every day. Like I said, this plan is good as, and then the overall construction. I've been saying everyone wants to know what's going to cost and how long it's going to be. Right now, I think our best estimate that we have where we are today, it says this is in the $3 billion-ish price range, and we think 3 to 5 years. How many folks, anybody here on Facebook? Yeah. About a week ago, it may have been 10 days ago, I got this Facebook, pushed me something, and it said Paris 2024 for the Olympics. And it said we are 2,024 days away from the start of the Paris Olympics, and we're getting started. And I go, wow, that seems like a long way away. I mean, I know all that effort that goes into getting those Olympic venues together, the construction, the infrastructure, and everything that has to happen with that. And then it hit me. The first F-35 is going to be here maybe a year before that happens. And we haven't started this effort yet. So that as I think about the magnitude of the effort that we're talking about to rebuild Tyndall, this is going to be an Olympic-style event. And that end date is firm. We're not going to be able to boost ticket, slide ticket sales one way or the other. When the aircraft arrive, the facilities need to be ready, the infrastructure needs to be ready, all the same time while we're operating the missions in the city of Tyndall today to meet its mission. So that's going to be the challenge that we have to face. But it's an exciting time, because I'll tell you, as an engineer, I love solving problems. A couple of points about the base you need to understand. As I learned as I came down here, so the utilities are privatized today, so power is a privatization, gas and water, and then housing. So we're not going to talk about those today. The most of the stuff we're going to talk about is the vertical construction and some of the horizontal. Overall, the airfield pavements themselves are in very good shape, but there are some opportunities and things we need to look at. For example, drainage is one thing that we're going to look at. We're finding even with our roofs, once that material started blowing around, a lot of our internal roof drains got clogged, and now we're fighting those battles in 1st Air Force and other places that we didn't need. I should have put the video in here. Probably about a month or so ago, I got this phone call. It was a Saturday. They're out. We had our inspectors out checking work, and I get this, hey, you need to see this. Apparently one of the roof drains clogged on the club. The entire roof structure started, this awning area essentially became a swimming pool. And it rained out of the hole they punched in it for 15 minutes. They estimated it was probably 40,000 gallons of water that were up on the roof. Fortunately, nobody was underneath there when it gave way. So those are just another sampling of the problems we have. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the task force. I'll just hit this very quickly. So Task Force HARP was another one. It was housing, assignments, relocation, and posture. Another support from Air Force IMC. That was Colonel Seth Frank came down here. They have been helping with the personnel side. We also had the housing piece. Major Sam Logan and Colonel Mike Beach were here helping solve both the accompanied and unaccompanied. So they're working through this. I think Task Force HARP stands down on Friday, I think, after that initial. But looking at all those assignments and getting the people where they need to do and all the assistance as you take care of families and airmen. So a great job they did there. Next slide. And then Task Force Phoenix. You saw the picture of Pat Miller in the video. He got here. Boy, I think it was within 10 days of the storm, sat down, and their focus really was to assess, determine, and preserve. They got that firmly underway. Looking through some of that, and I'll talk about the determination piece and how that continues to change. The assessment's pretty much over, and we still are battling preserve every day. Just this past week, we had more roofs, and I see some of my teams in the back there that are overseeing some of the contracting actions today, but it is a battle against time. And we're really getting after it. Next slide, please. So that picture there is Major Jason Caranta. He is 6'3". And this is just a small sampling of the debris pile. And so I know we had the opportunity to come up to DC and speak, and I think that was beginning of December, end of November, about what has gone on and how quickly can you get after things. And the sheer magnitude of the debris and the debris operations that have been ongoing ever since that time is really something, a number that you can't comprehend. So that's just a picture. That's just one of the piles. There's also a pile of steel. There's also a pile of other things. Advance to the next slide. So to put it in numbers, and many of you will see this, but we almost have 800,000 cubic yards of debris on the air base right now. And that's, we go, hey, that's a great number. It's a big number. Trying to put that in perspective. So we went up there. We tried to find a way to capture it. If you all been to the Capitol, many of you, and look at the Capitol Rotund from the bottom floor all the way up to the dome, we'd fill that 16.5 times. I mean, there is a shredder running seems like 24/7 out near where we live, just shredding trees to get it into mulch. We've partnered with DLA. DLA has already started to take off the steel. You saw in the video that it went down the flight line initially. Those were the sunshades that were out there laying down there. But we're going to reuse that, recycle that steel and try to bring it back for another purpose. But there is just a considerable amount of debris, and there is still a considerable amount in place with buildings collapsed on themselves that we're just getting after to reshape the landscape so we can get a clean slate, if you will, to start building out the rebuild. Next. So what have we done? This is the size of the numbers, so those aren't additive. So as the Air Force categorizes what's a facility, what's a building, facilities will also include things like an awning, it will be a pad, these kind of things, but overall vertical structures is just under 500 of them for 4.2 million square feet. The one thing that I was not prepared for when I came down here was the fact that every single one of those buildings, every single one needs some level of work, whether that's demolish, a paint job, a roof. You think of the traumatic event that occurred, and you can see the twisting of the trees and the way the wind swirled around. We're up in the control tower. Control tower has got this glass in it that's probably about an inch thick, double paned. There was debris that punctured through both levels of glass inside and then broke out the inside panels on the inside of the control tower, and that place was full of water. We are working to get that back. It's a critical facility. We got to get there, and long lead item, the glass. But we're getting after it. But you can't understand what that did and kind of twisted. Even some of the buildings out where General Williams are, you can see the corners of the building just slightly twisted enough that it's cracked the facades of the thing. Some of the roofs are slightly off kilter. Some of the buildings completely gone. So as we get through this, think about that, and that's why we're trying to take a really deliberate approach on what gets demolished, what doesn't, what can we fix. But as we get in, and I liken it to surgery sometimes, as we peel back the walls, we're finding more and more stuff that we didn't anticipate in the initial look when we did the damage assessments. And you don't find that until you get in there. But the team's after it, and we look forward to your ideas as we help solve that. Next. So where are we and what have we done for assessment? So I mentioned we brought in some industry. We brought in the FEST teams from the Corps of Engineers, and also our AFCEC CO team here at Tyndall. We did about 200 and just shy of 300 detailed facility assessments. Some were pretty clear cut. We're going to demolish that. Some of those we really wanted to make sure we're using the best use of taxpayers' money. And that was a busy slide, but what I really wanted to come back to, if you start on the left up there, that's kind of the initial assessment from Task Force Phoenix, red, yellow, green, just bold at some point. As we came through, we realized that we needed an approach. And you come back to some of those key terms. It needed to be repeatable, something that every single facility went through the same process to make sure that we were making the right and sound decision. We knew we wouldn't have the end state, but you can see some of the things we were looking through there. We're either going to demolish, we're going to repair it for the mission, we need a more detailed assessment or something else. And so we created this thing called the Facility Disposition Review, FDR. We got a picture of FDR in the office. And we wanted to go through every single facility and bin it again because things had changed. So you can see we have 3 categories now: demolish, and we've already made those decisions through the facility board with Colonel Laidlaw. Those we recommended for demolition. You have the repair, the mission, and we have about 1 million square feet that I mentioned already underway. And then this thing, hold for master plan. So as you come down here, we'll figure out the best avenue to get after that, and some of that on what the authorities that we're going to use, and maybe some of the new authorities that we have under 2854 is a potential. It all depends on the dollars that we get, the timing of the dollars, and bringing back some of the missions. But you see that bottom, that's really the takeaway from the slide right now. We think about 44% we're recommending for repair today. That was going into the master planning effort. Almost 40% we're holding for master plan, and you can kind of see on the bottom right here, about 17% for demo. I will tell you, based on our initial assessment in the first 2 weeks, this number is heading that way. As we looked at the support side of the base, there's not a lot salvageable, and we'll see some of the pictures on why some of that's not there. Consolidation opportunities. Colonel Laidlaw mentioned the gunnery range in World War II. Some of those original buildings are still here. We got some 1943 vintage single-story World War II facilities that didn't ride out the storm so well. Next. So I want to give you just a little taste that you could see, from the video. This is an example on the flight line combat archer building. Initially, we binned it as yellow, potentially savable. You look at that and go, really? Don't know. The walls were still standing. Maybe just needed a new roof. We had to assess the systems. Currently today, this is a hold for master planning, but likely going to be demoed under as we go through. Just a sampling. The building next to it, that's the WEG building. That we think we can save that one. We have it completely gutted right now, but now we're finding the roof is off kilter. And do we make that decision? Because part of this, if you think back to, I like playing with Legos as a kid and I still do with my kids today, but these problems, it's all about phasing and timing. Because some of these facilities, you can't take 4 million square feet of facilities that were used. Now you can say, was it used efficiently? That's a whole other debate. But we still have that mission ongoing. We didn't lose that many people or missions. And so how do you leapfrog around and get the right timing of getting people in a facility while freeing up space to demolish while still meeting the mission and repair it simultaneously? So this is the challenge in front of us. So this one, we may use that building. We don't think we're going to keep the long-term building next to it, but we may use it for 3 to 5 years. So what minimum investment can we make in that building? I'll talk through some examples of those. Next. Another one down on the flight line, the AME storage, potentially saved, but likely as a whole for master plan, this one probably will not make it either. Next. This is the clean one. This is over to 8300. We do the subscale drone launch from here. You saw that thing taking off like a rocket in the video. This is their area. Most of those were warehouses, just didn't make it at all. We had to clean up some of them because in addition, we had asbestos out there. We had to clean that up, contain it. We're looking at some temporary options out there now with some temporary shelters to give them some workable space under cover for a while. But there's a whole area down here for kind of redevelopment and consolidation of operations to make it a little bit more efficient for the organization. Demo. Next. Then you get to this one. I draw your attention to this picture on the far bottom right. If you drive past that building, you're doing damage assessment, it looks pretty good. Hey, I think that's a green one. We're going to save it. You come around the backside. This was, where is he? Colonel Asker again. This is the CE building. He's one of the few commanders that are going to get a brand new CE complex. Very rare thing for us, but this is one of those that we're going to have to replace. But what's great about this photo, they were located, we'll get through the districts. We talk about the airfield district and the support side. This is key, valuable real estate over on the flight line that we can redevelop for something else and move this that doesn't need to be on the flight line away. So this is one of those that makes good sense, and I look forward to kind of planning this complex for the future. Next. Aircraft watch rack, same thing. You see this facility, its support facilities didn't fare so well either, so this is going to be a demolition. We thought it could potentially be saved, not so much. Next. So what have we done to preserve? This is a good view. This is up in the control tower, up about 10, 12 stories, looking down. That's the ops building. Anywhere you see a white-looking roof is a temporary, we call it TPO, covering to try to give us 12 to 18 months. So that's the clock we're under right now to get after these major roof repairs. And I think that's going to be the bulk of our effort for this O&M over this next year I'll talk about. We're also kind of drying out that facility. But you can see down in front, that is the RAPCON building. You can see part of the fire department over there. And you can just see in the background some of the other roofs that are completely gone that have already been peeled up. But those are some of the things we're getting after, the size of the problem. Mold remediation, I got to share this story. So Thanksgiving Day, we were out working the contractors that we have on base, the contractors and subcontractors out there working around the clock. They took Christmas Day off. They took a half a day for New Year's. And other than that, they've been working. And so where I was out in, it was a security forces building. We're out drying it out. They got the blowers going in there. And they want to get after the mold. So I don't know if any of you have seen mold remediation take place. We had great Americans in Tyvek suits, full respirators, on the floor with a rag in the metal channel of the studs, cleaning out every piece. And they'd wipe it, and they'd come up, it'd be dirty, they'd flip it over, they'd do it again. Until that came back clean, they would do that. After they went through once, they went through a second time to make sure it was good. And then you saw a picture of someone painting. It looks like they were painting in the video. That is sealant to lock in to make sure that if there is any mold left, which there really isn't when you see it, it's gonna encapsulate it and lock it in there so we know that it's been treated. So I will tell you, after I see that, they go back in, they clean out the ducts of the HVAC system. These buildings are in better shape sometimes than they were before the storm because they're clean. And the systems are getting the overhaul. So a tremendous effort that we continue to get after this every single day. Next. So the picture there in the background is a maintenance facility that does our low observable maintenance. Those of you who have ever spent any time with NATO, they have a term called minimum military requirement. Think about this is like combat repair for a facility. We don't know the long-term state, even with F-35s, is a different type of maintenance, but we need this facility today to meet mission requirements for the F-22s that are flying at Eglin. So we're taking an approach that we don't think this building is salvageable in the long term. We put a temp roof on it. We are doing mold mitigation in the back. We're taking other temporary measures. For example, once they spray the aircraft, they come out, it's almost like a decon to come from what we call the dirty side, hot side, to the clean side. when people come out of doing that work, we're looking at temporary tent solutions to put outside to get capability back, because this is a critical capability for the Air Force and the fleet. 25% of all LO booths are over here at Tyndall. And so the combat aircraft need this facility. We're doing whatever it takes to get them, like I said, dry in, mitigate, and operate. We got to get this thing up and running, and they're getting after it. But as one of those things, as I talk about, just when we think we get somewhere, it's like one step forward and two steps back. We're doing the assessment, we're looking at everything, okay, we got the mold taken care of, we're going to dry it in, we got the roof patch, we got everything taken care of, and then we found out the fire suppression system has got a problem. Because these are booth inserts, they sit inside, their equipment, we connect everything to them. We knew we might have had some pipe damage. When the storm happened, the fire suppression systems went off. Well, what we found out is when the water stopped, the pumps kept running. So we burned up all the fire pumps, or the fire pumps all burned up. So now we're looking at how we overhaul and get a temporary fire suppression system in place so we can safely spray in the maintenance facility. So it's just one of those things, as you peel back the onion every day, you find something else. But I'm encouraged by the solutions that we're finding to get through things and having the right tools to do it. Okay, next. So how we've been doing all this up to this point, so the Air Force has the contract augmentation program, we refer to it as AFCAP, executed out here at Tyndall Air Force Base. Today, the task order sits about just shy of $300 million. That included other things, commodities, and we ran the dining facility and others. Facility repair-wise, right now, somewhere between the $100 to $200 million. And I said we're getting after those 50 critical facilities, about a million square feet. And what we're trying to do is just return those facilities to pre-storm conditions. Now, those have been some challenging conversations, and the General and I have looked at some of those things that you go, well, like for example, we know that once the building envelope gave way, that's where the water intrusion. So there's a great example over at the AOC. There's a window that serves no purpose. Let's rip it out and cover it over so we don't have this again. So we're addressing some of those on a case-by-case basis. But what we're also finding is, as you pull those walls off, there's things that were occurred pre-storm that were already problems that we didn't know about. Maybe a leak that wasn't there, wasn't detected until after, so we're working through that as well. But what we even see is, even restoring these to pre-storm conditions, where I see some additional work is if we decide to do code upgrades, which we are, we're kind of talking internally now, what is the standard we're going to go to? Right now, most of the buildings are rated to, I think it's in the 120 to 130 mile an hour range. Miami-Dade is 180. We want to get down to see Miami-Dade Airport. We want to also go down to the Keys. I think they're down in the 200 mile an hour. So what code are we going to go back to? But do we make those upgrades on the buildings we're going to keep? Because some are going to need new roofs, like I mentioned. We'll need anti-ballistic or ballistic glass, if you will, hurricane-resistant glass. We've walked around the community a little bit. There's I won't say the name of the company publicly, but they had just built some new properties on 23rd Street. And those survived the storm. They were open very quickly after, so understanding what some of their design standards were. Talking to some of the people that worked there, the building had only been open about 6 months. 3 or 4 days before the storm, corporate sent a team in and put the shutters on, and to keep the debris from going through, and the restaurant survived very well and only had some, the only reason they couldn't open earlier is they didn't have power. So what can we learn from others that have already done some things? But the next piece of this presentation I think is key is Amy's going to talk to you about what we're thinking about for master planning and the work that's already underway and some of the ideas and principles that we want to incorporate to have Tyndall really be our first 21st century air base. Thank you.